All right, we are going live here momentarily. That looks good. Okay, so today is March 11th of 2025. After last week, we played the exceptional Little Match Girl in the Court of Maldweb. I am Jay Essen, and I'm playing How the Little Match Girl Met the Queen of Vampires this week. It's going to be a short little game written for Enigmarch 2022. So 3 years ago now. Next time, we're going to be playing the Little Match Girl 2. This is going to be a larger game. I may not even be able to finish it in one session. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and get started with the story of how Ebenezabeth met the Queen of Vampires, which begins with the question, would you like to see a curse word? I'm pretty sure I have played this game because I remember this interaction, but it's been a while. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. This has already been designated as a stream that is not for children, so I am happy to see a curse word within the rather narrow framework of curse words that Ryan has included in his games. All right. Hello, my name is Hans Christian Andersen. Perhaps you are familiar with the Little Match Girl, a character that I made up out of my own head and with her many adventures. If you aren't familiar, well, here is all you need to know. First of all, she is a very noble person, possessed of rare courage and conviction. Secondly, whenever the Little Match Girl looks at fire, any kind of fire, she is transported to somewhere else in space and time. When she must return from these travels, all she has to do is wake up and she finds herself back in the here and now, as if it had all been a dream. But do not be mistaken, it is no dream. The last thing you need to know is that after her first adventure, the little match girl was adopted by the famous old philanthropist Ebenezer Scrooge, who gave his new daughter the name Ebenezabeth Scrooge, which is a lovely name to read and just as lovely to say aloud. Ebenezabeth Scrooge, we call out, what will you accomplish on your next adventure? I will tell you. You need only press any key to continue. How the Little Match Girl Met the Queen of Vampires. Another touching short story written for Enigmarch 2022 by Hans Christian Andersen. Release 1, serial number 240722. Inform 7 version 10.1.2. Vorpal version 4.0.1. Clouds. Can you imagine it? There stood little Ebenezabeth on a cloud as solid as a castle, and far below her lay the city of London, stretched out like a map. If the little girl was frightened of being so high up, she didn't show it in her face, for she had been brought up to the clouds for a very solemn purpose. Around her was a great assembly of birds, the albatross, the owl, the stork and his wife, the sparrow, the duck, and so on. In the middle of all this was a gleaming throne, fashioned from the golden clouds that appear at sunrise and at sunset, and on the throne sat a little wet snail. Our great king is transfigured, said the albatross, and it is only with this magic whistle that he can be restored. And he handed the whistle to Ebenezabeth. Let us begin by examining ourselves. She was a little girl with flaxen hair, only 17 years old. She carried her revolver and a magic whistle. It is a great honor to serve such an august personage as the King of Birds, and I am very grateful to be invited, said Ebenezabeth. But if I may ask, why do you require one such as myself to play this magic whistle? None of us have lips, explained the albatross. Okay, so she was carrying her revolver and a magic whistle. Let's examine our revolver. An intricate pattern of flames was engraved in the side of her revolver, surrounding the words, For my friend Ebenezabeth, Samuel Colt. And the magic whistle. It was a simple wooden flute, apparently very old. She knew how to play the notes A, B, C, D, E, F, and G on it. Let us examine the birds. There were a great many other birds there, yes, but we won't waste our time worrying about them, as there is much else to be related in this tale. Let's examine the albatross. The albatross was a huge bird who could easily bear such a little girl as Ebenezabeth up into the clouds on his back. And how else do you think she got there? Fair enough. The owl. The owl observed all the proceedings with her piercing eyes, but offered no comment. The stork. Ebenezabeth was quite in awe of the stork. She knew what an important bird he was, and wanted badly to make a good impression with him. Let's examine the stork's wife. The stork's wife seemed somewhat distracted, despite the gravity of what was taking place on the cloud, and would turn an eye at intervals toward the city below, as if something down there were weighing more heavily on her mind. And the sparrow? The sparrow was a very little bird, even smaller than Ebenezabeth, but, of course, these things are not all that important. The duck? She was a very handsome duck, with fine speckles of brown feathers. And that is all of the named birds that we have. Let's talk to albatross. What melody should I play on the whistle to break the spell on your king? Asked Ebenezabeth. None of us are sure, said the albatross, but you may try as many different tunes as you require. We don't mind if it takes a whole hour. Let's talk to the owl. Good afternoon, said Ebenezabeth to the owl. Yes, said the owl, and no more passed between them. It is a great pleasure to meet you, said Ebenezabeth to the stork. We've met once before, of course, said the stork, but you may have forgotten. You were only a little baby at the time. It's quite all right, quite all right. I don't take any offense. But Ebenezabeth was already turning quite red. We talked to the stork's wife. He's not such a great fellow, my husband, said the stork's wife, although Ebenezabeth had said nothing to raise the subject. But the stork's wife had noticed how she looked at him. There are many like him in the world. You shall see when you are older. There is nothing so special about any man as to set him apart from the others. The stork could not help but overhear this, but he acted as though he were focused on something else. Let's talk to the sparrow. How do you do? Asked Ebenezabeth of the sparrow. It is something great to be present at a scene of such importance, isn't it? Said the sparrow, puffing up his breast. We are witnesses to history. I suppose so, said Ebenezabeth. We talked to the duck. How do you do? Asked Ebenezabeth of the duck. I do not like to be away from the ducklings so long, she answered, but if it is required of me, I must do my duty. My husband can handle the ducklings, even if he isn't very skilled at such things. We all have our own weaknesses and our own strengths, and we must all do our duties, though they may pain us, yet we mustn't complain either. Of course not, said Ebenezabeth. So, let us examine the king. The king of birds had been turned into a rather undignified little snail, looking rather like a barnacle or a fly spot on the great golden seat of the bird's royal throne. We talked to the king. I will do my best to help, your majesty, said Ebenezabeth to the snail. The snail made no reply. Let us try playing the flute. You must specify what melody to play on the whistle. Okay, so this is, I do remember this. This is kind of an unusual little match scroll game in that it is similar to the Battle of the Grey Peaks in that this is sort of an adaptation of an external type of game. But rather than being a strategy role-playing game like that was, this is an adaptation of uh, uh, Wordle, essentially. So let us try and play a tune on the whistle. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Let's just play a 5-note scale. She played the melody A, B, C, D, E, F, but she could tell the song was too long. So let's play A, B, C, D. That's still too long. So it is a 3-letter. ABC. She played ABC on the flute, and right away she could tell that the song had 0 correct notes in the right places and 0 correct notes in incorrect places. So it's not at all A, B, or C. Well, let's play GED. It had 0 correct notes in the right places and 2 correct notes in incorrect places. Oh, yes. And as is often the case in Little Match Girl games, there is a puzzle to be solved here in terms of wordplay. Play EGG. Ebenezabeth played the notes E, G, G on the flute, and the music whirled round the cloud, and the golden throne, and the miserable little snail, and all at once the spell was broken. For now on the throne there sat the eagle, the mighty king of birds. Well done, little girl, said the eagle to Ebenezabeth, who had made a very deep curtsy at his appearance, and only now stood up to look in his great flashing eyes. My subjects were wise to request your help, but I fear there are others who have need of your assistance and of the power of the magic whistle. The eagle beat his wings, and a tall flame appeared in the midst of the cloud. Go quickly, he said, and Ebenezabeth nodded. But not so quickly that we're not going to examine him. The eagle sat in splendor on his throne, spreading his wings mightily. On his head was a golden crown, and a collar of gold was around his neck. And I suspect he's just going to rush us if we say we talk to him. Make no delay, Ebenezabeth, said the eagle. I fear that the same spell that transformed me has befallen others far away. You must do your best to help them as you have helped me. Of course, said the little girl. So, let us examine the flame. Ebenezabeth looked into the flame, and it was as if she were flying even higher than the clouds, flying to Visby, Gotland. Snowy track. A trail of frozen mud leads up to a timber longhouse. On all other sides there is nothing but wind and snow. Let us examine the snow. You'd prefer to stay out of the snow whenever possible. That is appropriate. Um, Something I don't remember if I mentioned this during the previous game when we were trying to rid Ebenezabeth of the malaise that had overcome her, and the manner in which we did so was to play the instrument, and there was a great fire. Ebenezabeth is a creature of fire in some ways. She has a flame alignment to her persona, if we are to say that there is some sort of elemental affinity at play. So, just as her most severe crisis was when she was in the cold at the beginning of this series of games, so it is that she herself is a source of warmth, and so it is not surprising that she prefers to avoid the snow whenever possible. Let's examine the longhouse. Wisps of smoke curl around the building's roof. It's probably much warmer in there than it is out here. And the trail? You see nothing special about the frozen trail, so let us enter Longhouse. A roast hog, bones picked mostly clean, lies on the table below a flickering torch. A skald sits on one side, plucking a mournful melody on his lute. A servant and an Arab merchant sit across from him, nursing goblets of fermented goat's milk. At the head of the table is a tall throne carved from wood. Sitting in the throne is a rose. "Oh, you couldn't have arrived at a worse time," cries the servant. "Queen Ilva has been enchanted." "I'm here to help," you say. "May I ask your name?" "I am Philip, the queen's favorite slave and concubine," he says. "If you can save her, I will be so, so grateful. We all will," he insists. His companions do not agree or disagree. So, let us examine these servants and our setting. The hog is served on a bed of leafy greens. There's not much meat left at the table. The table has seen a lot of feasts and a lot of fights. And the scald, we're going to save the torch because looking at it will potentially move us elsewhere. The Skald is focused intently on playing his lute. There is nothing else on his mind, or that's the impression he's trying to create. Let's talk to him. It's a pleasure to meet you, you tell the Skald. My name is Ebenezabeth. Broder, he says with a little nod. That's all. Let us. Oh, and now our description of the room has updated with the information about Broder's name. Philip and an Arab merchant sit across from him. Let's examine the merchant. The Arab merchant is more confused than anything else. He strokes his beard and considers taking another sip from his drink. It is a pleasure to meet you, you tell the merchant. My name is Ebenezabeth. Mine is Said, he says. I confess I am not as distressed by the situation as these men. To have a rose for a queen is rather poetic, in my opinion. When I tell my friends back home, they will think. He stares at his drink for a bit and doesn't finish the thought. Okay. Let's talk to Philip again. It's just awful, says Philip. I know Queen Ylva better than anybody. She would rather have been turned into anything else. I'm sure I can help, you say. Let's examine the rose. A beautiful red rose seems to have grown out of the throne's wooden seat. So, if we are to... something we usually sing during these games. I walk the maze of moments, but everywhere I turn to begins a new beginning, but never finds a finish. After the last game that I played, Ryan confirmed that was Enya lyrics that we encountered in the Court of Muldweb, which is likely to be the case with these as well. But I am, while I have heard plenty of music that Enya has performed, I'm not much for picking out lyrics most of the time or recognizing them when I encounter them. So this could be her lyrics again, but it might just as well not be. Let's examine. So we've examined the rose. So we need to play a tune. Well, as long as we're on a musical subject, let's play ABBA. You play ABBA on the flute. The song has one correct note in the right place and 0 correct notes in the incorrect places. Okay. Examine the flute. A, B, B, A. One of these notes is correct. And I do not recall a specific word for this. So we're just going to play some more notes. We play A, D, E, F. It has one correct note in the right place and 2 correct notes in incorrect places. So the A might be right, but that's not easy to tell. Let's try a F, C, D. Okay, so if we play A, F, C, D, this is incorrect. 0 correct notes in the right places and 2 correct notes in incorrect places. So we have lost a correct letter compared to A, D, E, F, which had 3 correct notes, and this only has 2. So the E needs to be in here. But we can't tell from that, I don't think, that the E was in the right spot necessarily, because we did reverse the F and the D. So this is not the correct answer, but this is actually a word. So yes, D, E, A, F is 3 correct notes in incorrect places, whereas A, F, C, D, or A, D, E, F had 1 correct note in the right place. So let's see if it is... Well, it's not going to be the F. And it's not going to be the A, so it had to be the E. Okay. I don't remember if we... So we do think there's a D in the second position. Play CDFG. Okay, so CDFG has 1 correct note in the right place and 0 correct notes in incorrect places. So I think we're right about the D, and we can. So C, D, F, and G. So I think it is the. Well, this is a little embarrassing because it's been a while since I have played this or really thought about this kind of word puzzle. Oh, EDGE. 2 correct notes in the right places and 0 correct notes in incorrect places. Okay. Well, how about EDDA? Yes, we play EDDA on your wooden whistle. The wind howls in response and the longhouse shudders. Philip and Saeed look around in alarm. Even Broder stops plucking his flute. And the rose grows taller and taller, and its petals open up to reveal a woman in leather armor, with a spear in her hand and red paint on her cheeks. I am restored, bellows the Viking queen. Philip rushes to grovel at her feet. The rest of you merely bow. And you are the one who has restored me, she says as she approaches, pushing Philip back into his chair. Thank you, little girl. Let this be a symbol of my gratitude and of the bond that will unite us ever after. She pulls a bracelet of braided gold from her wrist and places it on yours. You have to push it up to your bicep to keep it from falling off. You are very kind, your majesty. I hope we will meet again. But I have more work to do, you say, glancing at the torch above. Let us examine the queen. The Viking queen is twice as tall as you are, but you notice she has the same flaxen hair as you. There might even be some resemblance around the nose and chin. You wonder. Talk to the queen briefly. Queen Ilva smiles at you as if at an old friend. What did you say your name was, little girl? Ebenezabeth. Ah, name of the Christians, or else the Jews, in the lands to the south. Something like that, yes. So, uh, some form of relation, it sounds like. We examine the torch. You gaze up into the torch, and it whisks you away, hopefully to someplace warmer. Newark, New Jersey. Tunnel. Lukewarm water runs past your ankles. The curved tunnel is built from brick, right here at least. It abruptly turns into poured concrete a few yards ahead. A rusty ladder in a side passage leads downward. Well, if we examine the water is dark. And the brick. You can get some idea of the history of this tunnel, how and when it was constructed. Not much, though. And the concrete. Yeah, same description. How about the ladder? Bent rebar is worked into the walls. Okay. I'm not sure of the actual direction. Well, we could try going forward. No, we can't. Okay, well, if we try going north, this tunnel is blocked off by metal grates ahead and behind. There isn't much of anywhere to go except down the ladder. Okay. I suspected that would be the case, but I didn't want to just jump to the obvious direction right from the beginning. Rectangular chamber. A placid walrus sits on a throne of scrap metal, on a concrete dais flanked by 2 sleeping alligators. Murky water streams in through various smaller tunnels and flows away to who knows where. A boy and girl in puffy jackets leap forward to meet you. A fellow teen, says the boy, shouldering his hockey stick, but the girl keeps hers leveled at your neck. Identify yourself, she growls. Ebenezabeth Scrooge, you say. I don't mean any harm. I think I can help your friend. She's fine, the boy whines, and the girl begrudgingly lowers her weapon. You can see a walrus here. We examine the walrus. The walrus seems to have no opinion on the situation whatsoever. How about the alligators? The alligators are curled up like tired puppies. Nobody here, other than you, seems to be the least bit frightened of them. And the boy? His puffy jacket is patched up in a few places, slashed open in a few more. He carries his hockey stick with careful half-confidence, the way you carry your revolver. His face is spattered with... His face is with spattered with freckles or sewer water. Small typo there. Not a necessary word. The girl, her hair is tied back in a greasy ponytail. She can't be much older than you, but there's a weariness in her eyes that know the world too well to trust a stranger. Her earrings are little anime frogs. Talk to the boy. The boy smiles. Where are our manners? I'm Luke. This is Amy. It is a pleasure to meet you both. Do you live down here? Not on a full-time basis, no. My parents will want me back home by 9. And Amy... Not until 11, mutters Amy. Talk to Amy. You'd better get around to lending that help you mentioned, says Amy. I don't normally let intruders stand around our inner sanctum this long before I knock their teeth out. Okay. So, a walrus. Let's play another scale just to establish the... Okay, so it's still 4 letters. DEAF is again a word with 0 correct notes in the right places, 2 correct notes in incorrect places. We do DD. It has 1 correct note in the right place and 0 correct notes in incorrect places. So there needs to be either a D or an E in the 3rd or 4th location, respectively. FADE has 2 correct notes in the right places and 0 correct notes in incorrect places. Okay. We play Dada. Has 1 correct note in the right place and 0 correct notes in incorrect place. Oh, that doesn't help me very much. So it is... I think it's the D that if I'm understanding right. Okay, so only one of F and D were in the right spot. Okay. So GADG has 1 note in the right place, 1 note in the wrong place. Okay, yeah, now Edge just has 2 correct notes in the right places, 0 correct notes in the incorrect places. I should be more systematic about this, but I can't remember how I approached solving these problems before, and it's been such a long time. C, D, E, F, G. Here we go. Cage. You blow on the whistle and the notes C-A-G-E reverberate through the chamber. One of the alligators stirs. The walrus sits up in its throne. It sniffs the air. And then it twists and changes into a girl in a beat-up leather jacket, ripped jeans over fishnet tights, steel-toed boots. All hail Brittany, the sewer queen, her guards intone, as she cracks her neck and settles back into her throne. Nice job, kid. We owe you one. I'm very glad I could help, Your Majesty. Do you happen to know how you became a walrus? She shrugs. Probably ate too many vegetables, she says, and the guards laugh politely as she lights a cigarette. Are you on AIM? Asks Luke. You shake your head. Oh, that dates it a little bit. I miss Instant Messenger. Now, let's see. Examine Brittany. Queen Brittany leans back in her throne, drawing slowly from her cigarette. She smirks down at you approvingly. If we talk to her... You got a cool accent, says Queen Brittany. Where are you from? Copenhagen. London, you say. She nods, takes a drag from her cigarette. And the cigarette is notably a source of flame. You focus on the flame glowing at the tip of the cigarette, and it opens up into a gulf of fire, and you fall into ruined Abydos, Egypt, desert. Purple mist snakes across the dunes, pouring over toppled columns. The sky is full of fog, too. Only a few greenish stars manage to shine through. A blackened pyramid looms to the north. Something I am just now remembering is that I'm pretty sure you should be able to talk to all of the other characters in each of these locations after completing the transformation for more colorful, amusing information. I kind of regret not having done so when I remember to, but that is again something that you can do yourself if you choose to play this, which I would certainly want to give you every reason to do so, despite the fact that I am in the process of solving all of the main puzzles of this game. Let's see. If we examine the dunes, sand goes on in every direction, and the columns. The chunks of carved stone are mostly buried in the sand. The fog, the haze seems to be everywhere. You hear something chirping north of here. At the source of the pyramid? The pyramid slopes are interrupted by deep gaps, as if huge pieces had been hacked away. Interesting. Well, let's go north to the palace. The remains of a lavish throne room lie in the shadow of the Black Pyramid. Two mummies and their embalmed cat recline on crumbling couches. Ghostly green flames dance in a shallow pit before you. Beyond, on a sandstone throne, sits a toucan, very much alive and unmummified. "What on earth is a living human girl doing here?" asks one mummy. "There's no need to be rude," says the other. She rises slowly to greet you. "Welcome, little alive human girl. I am Nanut, and this is Penenk, and that's Sanit," she says, of the cat sniffing at your feet. "The gentleman in the throne is my husband, Jareth, the king of mummies, but he's not himself today." "It is a pleasure to meet all of you," you reply. "My name is Ebenezabeth. I think I can help." So we have Nanut. The king's wife looks like any other mummy. If she wears any symbols of her office, they're under her bandages. But you can see a bit of her face, and you choose to interpret the look on what remains of her lips as a smile. And Penenk? Penenk is a shriveled human body wrapped in yellowed linen. He doesn't look very happy to meet you. The toucan chirps. The toucan? His bright blue eyes and bright orange beak make the king of mummies seem very out of place, and he hops back and forth on his throne with an energy that doesn't at all become a mummy. And the cat's name is Sanit. Sanit keeps finding excuses to sidle up and sniff you again. "Do you have a cat of your own?" asks Ninut. "Yes, her name is Puss. I think Sanit can smell her on my clothes." "Well, he seems to like her," says the Mummy Queen. "Maybe that means they are friends, even if they're separated by millennia." "That seems very reasonable," you say. We talk to Penenk. "Do you know what happened to put King Jareth in such a state?" you ask Penenk. "I have my suspicions. We recently came into possession of what you would probably call real food, living plant matter, not meant for mummies. But Jareth saw it as an appropriately royal luxury." "I see. What do you normally eat, then?" Penenk doesn't answer. Okay. So, for the toucan who has eaten some food and been transformed, let's. Oh, we never looked at the bracelet. These bands of gold twisted around each other into a three bands of gold twisted around each other into a shiny bracelet. It feels warm around your arm. Okay. We play ABABA. That's again too long. So here's ABBA again. 0 correct notes in the right places, 1 correct note in an incorrect place. I think if I'm remembering how I did it the first time, I would start by going through to get the letters. So it's a 4-letter word with an A. So there should be no B's, correct? No C's. 2 D's. Okay, there is 1 E. So we know it's A, D, D, E. Dade? One note, one correct note in the right place, 3 correct notes in incorrect places. Oh, of course. We play dead. You blow the notes dead from the magic whistle. The toucan stops hopping about, transfixed by the melody. Then the bird seems to wither away before your eyes, and wrinkled linen wraps around its form. Which grows, even as it wastes away, into the shape of a man, a shriveled mummy man. Yunut and Penenk rise to assist him, but Jareth waves them away. He walks up to you. It is rare for anything to happen on this dead planet. Anything at all, he says. I find myself feeling a bit grateful to have suffered this strange inconvenience. But I am more grateful to you, little alive girl, for breaking the spell and restoring my proper form. He puts a cold hand on your shoulder. It is my honor, your majesty, you answer, and he resumes his throne. We examine Jareth. Now the king of mummies cuts a stately figure, grasping the arms of his throne in his long, slender fingers. You can't see his eyes, but he seems to see straight through you. We talk to him. I suppose you must be going soon, says Jareth. I'm afraid so. Perhaps it is for the best, he muses. Earth is no place for living little girls, not any longer. And yet... But the thoughts of the Mummy King are his alone. So, apparently we are on Earth, but this is the distant future, which this is not the first time we have been to the distant future of Earth, but it will certainly not be the last. If we look, let's see where the flame is. Ghostly green flames down. Oh, right. Before we go, let us talk to. I've forgotten their names. Talk to Sanet? What a handsome cat you are, Sanet, you explain, though there isn't much left of him to base this impression on. Talk to Ninut. It's really very nice to meet you, says Ninut. The last living beings abandoned this planet long, long ago. We came up out of our tombs into a rather pale, sterile world. You're not sure what to say to this. We talk to Penenk. Mr. Penenk, do you have any more insights as to what caused the king's transformation? I still think it was something he ate, he says, but he's not inclined to discuss the matter further with you. Let's examine the green flame then. The flames are insubstantial, burning without fuel, without heat, but they can take you away notwithstanding to Prague, in the kingdom of Bohemia. Catacomb. Tunnels of dusty brick splitting off in all directions, but a source of light flickers somewhere to the west. The passages all look alike. Well, we could wander, but if there's light flickering to the west, let's just go ahead and go in that direction. You walk toward the source of light, trying hard not to make a sound. Catacomb, a bend in the tunnel. The flickering light is down the northwest passage. So if we continue to the northwest, you continue toward the light as quietly as you can. Ossuary. Candles mounted in dirty skulls line the walls, shadows fluttering in their eye sockets. A throne of yellow bones stands in the center of the chamber, and in this throne sits a little green turtle. The turtle's bodyguards, a scrawny vampire and a burly vampire, seem very pleased to see you. Good evening, little girl, says the smaller one, creeping closer. Whatever are you doing way down here, where no one will ever come looking for you? I have come to help you wave your flute at the throne, your turtle. I don't think you should do anything to harm me, or else I might decide not to cooperate. He backs away petulantly. Let's examine this scrawny vampire. An emaciated creature with unkempt hair. He looks back at you and licks his lips. Talk to him. Before you can ask, he introduces himself. I am Mortis, footman to the Queen of Vampires, he says. If you can emancipate Her Highness from this lowly form, you will be rewarded handsomely. If you fail, you will have only a short time in which to regret your incompetence. I must beg your patience, Sir Mortis, you say. Sometimes it takes me many tries to figure out the correct melody. Let's examine the burly. The big vampire leans on a bloodstained shovel, although he could just as easily kill you with his bare hands. Talk to the burly vampire? How do you do? You ask the giant vampire. He looks down at you grimly. Kozan isn't what you'd call a scintillating conversationalist, offers Mortis. We examine the turtle. The turtle points its wrinkled face up at you, perhaps in contempt, perhaps in supplication. So let's use our strategy from last time here. Is this one 5 letters? It is. It has 1 correct note in the right place and 0 correct notes in incorrect places, so no B's. Oh. Oops, too many notes. No C's. 2 D's. 1 E. 1 F. I think that was actually all of our notes already. So we have 1 A, 2 D's, 1 E, 1 F. Faded? You lift the magic whistle to your lips, and the tune, faded, echoes through the catacombs. The vampires cringe in ecstasy. The turtle rises to its hind legs, and then it stretches out into a woman. Her skin glows like parchment in the candlelight. Her dress spills over the throne of bones, filling the room like a cascade of rose petals, and dark, silky hair, tied in intricate ringlets, covers her white shoulders. Her pink eyes shimmer with inner radiance, and they fall on you, and you are unable to move. Your name, little girl. Her voice is so soft. Ebenezer Scrooge, you manage. And I am Ate, Queen of Vampires. You have done the vampire world a great service, Ebenezer Scrooge, and we will never forget your kindness. As a small token of my gratitude, I will direct Mortis to lead you out of these catacombs and punish him with unimaginable torment should he let you come to any harm. Thank you, your majesty. You give a low curtsy. I still deeply regret that I was forced to destroy the vampire Urimedon when she... You say you killed Urimedon? I did not choose to type the word That was Ebenezabeth's volunteered command. Ate leaps across the room. You miserable bitch! I'll cut out your heart! Her fingernails dig into your cheek. I'll roast you alive! You're pinned to the floor. You focus your eye on a random candle, and it obligingly takes you to the depths of a nameless swamp. Well, that turned in a hurry. Throne room. Oh, it's terrible! A little mushroom grabs your hand, pulls you forward. The king has been transformed! A throne of rotted wood, draped with yellow mold, rises out of the mud. A tiger lies before the throne, lashing its tail. You, the mushroom, and the queen stand a safe distance away. Examine the mushroom. The mushroom is a tiny fellow, but full of energy. He can't decide whether he's soothing the queen, cowering from the tiger, or whining at you to do something about all this. The queen? Another pale woman with dark hair. But unlike Ate, she doesn't have razor-sharp fingernails, or pink eyes, or fangs. Even so, she seems very out of place down here. And the tiger? If what you've learned about Puss's body language can be applied here, you'd say this tiger is just about ready to rip something to shreds. Let's talk to our mushroom friend. It is a pleasure to meet you. No time, wails the mushroom. Please break the spell on the king. Well, perhaps we can talk to the queen. The queen looks at you in shock. You're bleeding, my dear, and she tears a piece of her dress off to staunch the cuts on your face. Thank you, your majesty, you say. Suddenly you want to cry. Now is not the time. Yeah, it's not surprising that Ebenezabeth would have some evidence of trauma after all she has been through. I will do my best to help, your majesty, you call to the tiger from across the room. We will try again to play 5 A's, which has 0 correct notes and 0 correct notes in incorrect spots. 5 B's, 2 notes in B. 5 C's, no C's present. 5 D's has 1 correct note. 5 E's, 2 correct notes. So we have 2 B's, a D, and 2 E's. We play E, B, B, E, D. You play the melody ebbed upon the magic flute. The tiger sits up, stretches out its back, and turns into a rotten stump. The stump leaps onto the throne. Marvelous! He cries. Come here, my wife! Come here, my little mushroom servant thing! Come here, little girl I've never seen before! You all crowd in around the Marsh King as he settles into his seat. What do you suppose all that was about? He muses. It was those strange leaves. I begged you not to eat them, says the Marsh Queen. Those leaves were delicious. You don't know what you're talking about, the Marsh King grumbles, and the subject is dropped. At any rate, I owe you a great debt of gratitude, little girl. My kingdom, such as it is at your disposal. You are very kind, you tell him. We examine the king. When he sits still momentarily, he looks like nothing more than an old wet stump, but then his eyes glitter like little black stones, and a grin spreads across his jack-o'-lantern lips. Talk to the king. Well, little girl, what's next for you, eh? You look around. There's no way out. I suppose all that's left is to wake up, you say. Ha! Very good, very good, very good. We'll talk to the mushroom. Well done, little girl, says the mushroom, who isn't even half as tall as you. And we'll talk to the queen. We're all very grateful, the queen says, squeezing her hands. I only regret that we have nothing to offer as a reward. That's quite all right, you tell her. So I suppose it is time to wake up. Close your eyes. And just like that, she found herself in the sky. Clouds. All the birds had flown back to their nests by now, except for the eagle, of course, and the albatross, who had promised to take Ebenezabeth back home. How did the rest of your journey fare? Asked the albatross, but Ebenezabeth said only, as well as could be expected, and the wee eagle wisely thought he ought to change the subject. Do you have any idea what could have caused all these strange transformations? He asked. Ebenezabeth had a very good idea, as she had been paying close attention all this time. But have you? And she thought it would be very clever of her if she could give her answer with the magic whistle. So, like last time, this is a puzzle that requires us to put together all of the answers we have given thus far. So let us review. We had, in the clouds, we said egg. Okay. In the longhouse, we said Edda. Okay. Egg, Edda. Cage. Egg, Edda, cage. Dead. Egg, Edda, cage, dead. egg, edda, cage, dead, faded, and ebbed. So we know that it is somehow related to food. Okay. Hmm. Interesting. Okay. What is EECDF? I feel like it was the first letter of each word arranged in the proper order, but I might be wrong about that. It's not okay, so I may have lost track of how many letters there are. Okay, so it is a 7-letter word. Let's be a little bit more deliberate about this. So we had, once more, just going to go ahead and make some notes here. In first place, it was egg. In the second place, it was Ada. In the third place, it was Cage. In the fourth place, it was Dead. In the fifth place, it was Faded. In the sixth place, it was Ebbed. That's only 6 locations, and the correct answer is 7. So let's go ahead and just use our usual technique. It has 2 A's. It has 2 B's. It has 1 C. I think I actually know what it is. Cabbage. The notes that Ebenezabeth played upon her flute spelled cabbage, Cabbage, and the eagle understood this at once. Of course, he said. Well, we won't make that mistake again. Thank you, little girl. Ebenezabeth gave a very deep curtsy and told the king of birds he was very welcome. And then the albatross offered her shoulder to her so that he could bear her back to the ground. Offered his shoulder to her so that he could bear her back to the ground, back to her home, where she could have a little rest. The end. Would you like to restart, restore a saved game, quit, or undo the last command? We do the about text, which I had neglected. Thank you for playing this game. I wrote it for day 18 of Enigmarch 2022, which I did in July of 2023, but I actually started it on the 16th when the prompt was hex, and I didn't finish writing it until the 20th. The prompt was spell. Learn more about Enigmarch at this web address, and find my other Enigmarch puzzles at this other web address. This game was tested by Emily Bogheim and Sarah Wilson. So, that was how the little match girl met the Queen of Vampires. So that was a pretty entertaining little diversion. And it is the last of the little miniature games we will play through before we get to the first official sequel to the original game, Little Match Girl 2. This is, like I said at the beginning of the stream, going to be a much longer game. So I do expect it will, if it takes at least an hour, there's a pretty good chance I'll be able to finish it in a single session. But it will be a much lengthier undertaking. And I hope to start earlier. There is a high probability that in the weeks following that we will have to start playing these games on Thursdays instead of Tuesdays. I do expect my schedule to continue to be very sporadic, so I don't want to commit to a specific time that we are likely to convene, but next week at least will still be on Tuesday, and weeks thereafter will likely be on Thursdays. But I will update you if I do something different. So thank you so much for playing with me today, and let's call it there for now.